Now to Iran, where the leadership has appointed former Revolutionary Guards commander Mohsen Rezaei as Secretary of its Supreme National Security Council. That puts him second in command of the body responsible for the country's security and foreign policy. The 71-year-old is a close ally of Iran's Supreme Leader and has often voiced deep scepticism about negotiations with the United States. He's also said he would welcome a US ground invasion so Iran could take thousands of hostages and demand millions in ransoms. Let's get more on this from Behnam Ben Taliblu from the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies, where he's Senior Director of their Iran programme. Welcome to DW. Mohsen Rezaei, it's a new name to most of us, but this 71-year-old has been working his way up the Iranian establishment hierarchy since his 20s. Tell us more about him.
Pleasure to be with you. It should not necessarily be a new name because he was the commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps for its heyday during the Iran-Iraq War, which was the longest conventional conflict of the 20th century. He is somebody who has failed upwards in his career politically and militarily. He actually has been linked to or reportedly part of the Iranian plot that led to the bombing along with Hezbollah of the Amia Center in 1994 in Buenos Aires, targeting a Jewish cultural center. And way back in the 1980s, he was also reportedly part of the band of people inside the Islamic Republic who engaged in the Iran-Contra affair, a scandal that Washington seems to have forgotten. He's been chairman of the Expediency and Discernment Council in the Islamic Republic for quite a while, a body that arbitrates between the Guardian Council and the parliament. And suffice to say, he's been a failed presidential contender multiple times, coming in well below Parliament Speaker now, Mohammad Baghalibaf, and well below former Supreme National Security Council Secretary Saeed Jalili. So while many are seeing this as a debate among different factions in the Islamic Republic, what this looks like to me is the Islamic replacing one 70-something-year-old IRGC general who was an Iran-Iraq War veteran with another 70-something IRGC general who was an Iran-Iraq War veteran. In short, it's just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
OK, we're going to come back to that thought. But firstly, orientate us. He's been appointed to the General Secretary of this Supreme National Security Council, which does what?
That is, you could say, the most important political national security decision-making body in the Islamic Republic. There's a secretary, and then the president also has a seat on that council. It brings various other government institutions that work on or have ties to national security issues, represents Iran's various factions there, and is designed to create consensus from the threats that the regime faces in order to foster action. And the most important group within that council is a shadowy amount of folks called the Secretariat. And that Secretariat, of which Mohsen Rezaei will be now a part of, will be driving major national security debates, such as how to respond to Iranian Gulf diplomacy, for example, potential renewed sanctions from America, and all the like.
OK, so let's then look at what you were saying about this reshuffling that's going on, because he is taking over from someone who was only appointed in March, I think, of this year. So what does that quick reshuffle tell us, either about him or his predecessor, or indeed about the direction Iran's leadership wants to head in?
Well, certainly, if one believes that Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of Ali Khamenei, the former supreme leader who was the longest-serving autocrat in the contemporary Middle East, if one believes that Mojtaba Khamenei is alive, is well, is making all of these decisions rather than a shadowy network of deep state folks, then this is Mojtaba Khamenei cementing his political directives across what's left of the Iranian national security elite. It's not uncommon after wars, for example, for there to be something of a corporate reshuffle among military and political elites involved in that conflict. It's not uncommon when there's new leaders to try to engage in the same reshuffling to have a greater political impact. And essentially what has happened here is that General Zolgat, who is ultra hardline and who is also the former Supreme National Security Council chief, has had one of the shortest tenures in the Islamic Republic's history as chief of that body. And they have brought in somebody who is not known for his competency, but is known for his zeal.
Right. So all of this, of course, is going on while Iran is waging a war, or has a war being waged against it by Israel and the United States. So what does this reshuffling, not only of Mohsen Rezaei, but also, I think, 6 more appointments that were announced by the Supreme Leader today. What does this massive reshuffle in the midst of a war tell us?
Some are looking at it from a factional lens or bureaucratic lens or political lens, but in a period when actually neither the Israelis nor the Americans are firing, and in fact, a de facto American policy based on what Trump reportedly told Axios just a few days ago, which was that the U.S. was going to be taking a low-key approach to the Islamic Republic. So how is the Islamic Republic exploiting this political vacuum in this low-key period when the shooting or the kinetic phases of the conflict is not as front and center? It's doing so by reshuffling the elites, by bringing forward another generation, in fact, a particularly old school generation of ultra hardline ideologues and loyalists. And again, while many people are looking at this politically or bureaucratically, you have to zoom out to zoom in. It's not that there's different cadres or factions. That's always been there in the Islamic Republic. But what really matters more now are the debates within factions, debates within hardliners, debates within the IRGC. And that's a better way to understand this.
Right.
But also another way is to understand that there's a thinning herd. For example, the new IRGC, the new Basij chief is someone who was removed from his post as IRGC intelligence chief just a few years back because of the string of cyber attacks and assassinations and sabotage that occurred on Iranian territory. And that's Hossein Taib. And now, again, just like Rezaei, he's failed upwards into a new position.
OK, so this all sounds like, if I'm reading you right, sort of internal machinations. And the rest of us sort of look at this and wonder, well, how are these changes likely to affect the current negotiations going on between Iran and the United States?
Well, as you and the audience know, at the moment, the Islamic Republic continues to deny that there are these negotiations. Instead, the most important negotiations are regional and bilateral. How the Islamic Republic throws its weight around in the region, and particularly with Oman, because it's basically a given that the U.S. would recognize whatever diplomatic agreement about the future of the Strait of Hormuz, ideally based on no conditions, as the Germans have been saying as well, over future entry and exit. Now, these folks that we mentioned, whether it's the Basij chief or the new Supreme National Security Council chief, you could consider them implementers or executors or stewards of Iran's policies. Perhaps the entire body of the Supreme National Security Council will have more impact on the debate. But think about these people at the helm being a bit more ornamental and instrumental and impacting tactics more than strategy, because I think that strategy is quite clear. It's that escalation rather than engagement will guarantee the Islamic Republic's survival. And that national security deep state that we talked about actually believes that the U.S., which has the greater conventional firepower here, is more boxed in by market concerns, by midterm concerns, you name it.
Thank you for guiding us through that, Ben. And Ben Taliblu from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies.
Thank you.